Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dirty Gaming and the second episode of the SSF playthrough. I'm going to do something a bit different in terms of the style of the video. I thought it'd be easier for both the end user and me to do a more structured video where I can bullet point and highlight key aspects of what I'm aiming for rather than just showing highlights and talking over what I've done. The idea is to make it easier for people to navigate to the parts of the video that might be relevant for them. Leave me some feedback if you like this style video, if you prefer the first episode, let me know because I obviously want to make this content as useful for everyone as I can. So when we left the last episode, I'd just finished the first map, so this video is going to cover off my early progress. So one of my really early goals is going to be to get a 5 link. This will improve my damage because I can add an extra link in. What it allows me to do is switch to Tornado Shot as soon as possible. This series is all about Tornado Shot, so I don't want to clear the Atlas before I switch. I want to switch as soon as I can. Now the current lead mechanic along with Tusion can help with this in regards to raw fusings. Lead mechanics that get lots of rares like Legion can also help when they come up in maps, as I've got a better chance of dropping a 5 or a 6 link through one of the conversion mechanics. Now I'm going to be targeting Expedition and Syndicate passives early on for both big unveils, rod crafting, and then raw currency. Now I mentioned switching to Tornado Shot is a personal goal of mine because the series is Tornado Shot, so the sooner I can switch, the better. As soon as I get a 5 link, I think I'm going to be okay to swap because of the bow and quiver that I picked up earlier on in the campaign. So the goal for the character is to get it breezing through T6 to Tier 7 maps. In case I hit a wall when I get to T13, T14 maps, I've got an option to drop back and speed really quickly through yellow maps and get the gear that I need to improve my character. Now, once I've got a few Expedition nodes and the Syndicate nodes, I'm then going to start picking up Kirak nodes because I want to help him sustain my map progression. So using him to reset my inventory and also using him to complete odd missions that I may not have been able to complete. So next thing we're going to cover off is just my general tips for some quick progress. So you want to buy all your Kirak maps when you can afford to, prioritizing those that are uncompleted. Now I believe his inventory resets for free after the first 10 maps, so I recommend you don't use any Atlas missions until you get that inventory reset. When his reset inventory has been done and he no longer has any items in it, then you can use his Atlas missions, and every time you use one, it resets his inventory, so there's a huge new selection of maps for you to buy. Now, I'd recommend you try and do as many lead mechanics as you can in maps, as every little helps with your early progression. However, if there are things that you absolutely hate doing, by all means, ignore them. So I don't do Breach, Ritual, Alvor, or Blight early on, because I just don't feel that they're that beneficial until you start actually targeting those mechanics using the Atlas passives. Now, where you can, I would try and alch your maps. You should have lots of binding orbs and lots of alchemy orbs from doing all the different expeditions. So you should be able to alch your maps where you can. I would do it even on your white maps because it just greatly increases the chance of you dropping currency and dropping maps. Even though it can be annoying, I would still recommend doing all your expeditions, including Gwenin, and I'm going to cover this off in a little bit more detail later on in the video. So what we'll do now is move on to talk about the early Atlas progression. So firstly, I'm just going to go to the right and take all of the Syndicate nodes, and then down and take all of the Expedition nodes. These give a great additional chance of getting Expedition in your maps, and are really close to our starting point. At this point, I'm then going to path up and take the big Expedition wheel to the right. This gives us, again, more chance to get Expedition. It increases our explosion radius. It just gives a lot of good passives for Expedition, which is what we're going to be targeting early on. Once you've completed that wheel, I personally am going to head to the middle of the tree to pick up more of the map sustain nodes and also the node that gives Kirak more chance to give you a mission when you complete a map. And then from here, it's more about filling out more of the Syndicate and more of the Expedition. So we're going to go across and get the Betrayal nodes here. Then I'm going to path up and take more Expedition nodes. Now at this point, I am going to take extra Rog because I do want him to craft all of my gear for me. So the only node I'm not taking is obviously more Gwenin. Once I'm happy with my gear, at that point I can drop the Rog node. And then at this stage, you're going to be, I would think, mid-tier to end-tier yellow maps. And that's going to be kind of where this video ends. In the next video, we're going to go through more Atlas tree for the next part of the strategy. So before we get into more tips and tricks, I thought it'd be handy to go through the gear I've got on my character at the moment, as I'm sort of clearing up the white tier of maps just about to push into yellows. So I'll go through the gear I've got, then we'll do a quick map showcase, and I'll talk about why I've switched to Tornado Shot this early. But I've got a lot of my goals completed already. I have a 5 link, which I ended up linking myself. I ended up with about 100 fusings, and thought if I carry on saving up, I'm probably going to get a 5 link by the time I actually have enough fusings. So qualityed the chest up to 20 and I linked it within about 40 fusings. This is obviously a risk because you could burn through them all and not link your chest, and then you've got to grind again to get your fusings. But 5 links, once you get into sort of mid-tier maps, drop fairly often anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it, and I really wanted to try it and push my progress onwards. Now, we'll just talk about this bow quickly that I got from Rog, because I actually realised now that I made a massive mistake. I think I got so excited with the prefixes, I then kind of just auto-crafted the rest of it. But originally, the bow had 3 big prefixes and 1 suffix, and then it offered me a chance to give a suffix with a high tier re-rolling X amount of times, and it did it twice in a row, and I took them both hoping that I'd hit big attack speed, and I didn't. What I should have done is not filled the last suffix, then I could have crafted attack speed on the bench, and that would push this bow even more higher in terms of elemental DPS. So in terms of the character, it's got a bow that's just under 700 LE DPS, it's got a decent quiver with prod speed and bow damage and flat damage. I managed to drop a Devoto's Devotion, so I've put it on for a bit of extra attack speed. The amulet is nothing really. It's, yeah, bog standard rubbish amulet. The rings, again, are really just there for life and resistances. They're terrible rings. But I have managed to unlock the Elrion craft because I've really been focusing on Syndicate. So now my Tornado Shot is 9 mana cost per try. So if you can see here, when I shoot, my mana rarely goes down. So I can spam this, which is really what I want to get out of a build. I'm still on a 4-link Ballista. So again, I can spam these. They're hard to use any mana whatsoever. So I can get my Gale Force up for things where there might be a phased boss or harvest or things like that. The gloves, again, just life and resistances. Boots, absolutely terrible. I picked these up super early in the campaign and then replacing. And then we have one more ROG item, which is this belt, which is actually really nice for early on. Apart from the fact I tried to reroll the strength implicit with the 5 orbs that I had, and it went 25, 26, 25, 26, 25. So it'd be nice to have more strength on the implicit, but overall, it's massive life. I think it's max tier T1. Yeah, so you can't get higher life than this on a belt. It's got big cold resistance and average lightning resistance, but for early mapping, this belt is really, really good, and it solves strength issues that you're going to have on this build until you get something like a Lethal Pride slotted in. I had a Reliquary key, and I got one of the worst Ventus gambles I've ever seen, which is a bit unfortunate. I was really excited when it dropped. We went, collected the reward, and yeah, it was absolutely garbage. I've had so many tabulas from this, and I'd have been happy with that, but no, it dropped a really, really bad Ventus gamble. But we have our first big item of the league. I also had an Enlightened drop as I was going through as well. So I've had some very, very nice drops early on. And this is something that once I get some Gem Cutters Prisms, I can level up for quality, so it levels quicker. I also think I've got a weapon somewhere from Syndicate with 10% quality, so I can get this leveled up quite quick. I'm not going to need it at all for a long time, but having a level 3 Enlighten is going to be really, really helpful. In terms of the tree, this is kind of what it looks like at the moment, which is bog standard sort of bow tree. I'm going to go here and get the Colin Strike mark nodes and then probably extra effective marks next just to help with single target. And then I'm not sure where we're going to go next. Normally you would get like a cluster jewel, or you would get a lion eyes, or you would get some decent jewels, but I haven't got any of that at the moment. And there isn't really any decent nodes that I can take on the tree from here. So I need to work out where I want to go next. The only other option really is probably to go up here. It's not brilliant for points, but if I don't have anywhere else to go, I can go and get these bow nodes, which also gives you phasing on kill, which is really nice. Then we can always respec them later if we end up getting, you know, a cluster jewel, a lion eyes, a legion jewel, or just some decent jewels in general. So at the moment, I don't have anything. So taking any of these jewel sockets is an absolute waste. To get my frenzies, I'm using Blood Braid, so I can't get them on bosses. So that would be another option for this mastery here, would be Frenzy, but I'm not doing any boss encounters yet, so I really don't need it because I'll have my Frenzy charges up when I go into a boss from a map anyway. So we'll just go and have a quick showcase so you can see what Tornado Shot feels like at level 83 in an SSF environment. So I need this Peninsula map for completion, so we'll run through and do this. I will apologise in advance. I've had to use my mechanical keyboard because my other one has broke. So you may hear quite a lot of clicking. So we've unlocked Maven. So I think we've done one Maven boss so far in terms of witnessing. So once I get a couple more done, I can go and attempt at the first Maven boss. As you can see, I'm using all my Syndicate and I'm using all my Kirat missions when I can. But auras at the moment, I'm just running a level 1 Precision, which doesn't look like it's active. Grace and Haste. I probably don't need the Precision because I think my chance to hit in terms of, yeah, my accuracy is 5,000. has to be above life because we're precise technique and my life is 3,700. So I don't even need the precision, but I don't have another ore that I want to run instead. So we'll just do a very quick map showcase and show you what it kind of feels like at this stage. Now, I think I have been quite lucky with my bow and my quiver, so it might not be that you've got this much damage. But it already feels okay. Haste just makes you feel nice and quick. It kind of takes away some of that annoyingness that you get early mapping when you're really slow. I have no fizz mitigation whatsoever at the moment. It's all grace and spell suppression. I have unlocked Corel's fizz taken as fire, but it costs an exalt, so I don't really want to craft that on a helmet until I know it's a helmet I'm going to use for quite a while. I also don't have any exalts. I have been doing the league mechanic, which has kind of got me a few decent amounts of currency, but nothing amazing. I'm using a fairly loose loot filter at this stage, which should be on my character profile. It's called bow leveling. Bow early mapping. So we'll go and do the boss, and then we'll scoot around and do the rest of the map, because this is about the highest tier map I've got. So obviously the better chance I've got of dropping more maps, the better. So you can see a single target is pretty decent. It's nothing to write home about, and when you get lots of tanky mobs, clear can feel a little bit janky, because when Tornado Shot feels good is when you're kind of killing everything really, really quickly. Whereas when you have to hit multiple times, it can start feeling a little bit worse. So I am doing Legion. I can't necessarily full clear them because I don't have any of the nodes, but they are worth doing. They can drop really, really good loot. So for the sake of it taking maybe half a minute to do a Legion, I think it's definitely worth doing. But because you haven't got insane DPS, it might be that you think you're clearing the Legion and you're just not doing the damage to break it out. So like, I didn't break that out, but I have no idea what was left because it's very hard to see when you're trying to be really quick. So we're just going to clear this Legion up and hope we don't die. I haven't came across a boss yet. That could be interesting if I come across a general. Oh, I thought that was it. It's not. So we're just going to scoot up these last bits of supplies. So the music stopped, so I'm assuming that's the end, but it isn't always the case. I've been one-shot by a Legion monster when the music stopped before. So go and pick up the Sanctum, and then we're just going to do this last bit of the map. And then we'll portal out, and then we'll get on to the next bit of the video. So before I go over a more detailed deep dive onto the stats you want to look for your early gear, I want to give a very, very quick overview of how to get the most out of your expedition encounters, as if you just randomly place down explosions, you might end up with very little return. So the way I complete them is the first thing I do is I scour the map to check the remnants that are available. Now, remnants are the things on screen here that add mods to monsters, but also boosts to your expedition loot. Use the first 2 to 3 dynamites you've got to get as many quantity, rarity, logbooks, and generally decent rewards as you can. Once you've selected all your remnants, you then want to go and get as many yellow and red chests as possible, along with runic monsters. So runic monsters are the big skulls on sticks, not the small ones. If you do this on every expedition, you're giving yourself the best chance to get as big a supply of artifacts, reroll tokens, and hopefully logbooks. So I thought I'd go through what I'm planning to do for gear progression and my tips for getting the gear and also the stats you want to look for on the gear. And then at the end of the video, we'll just quickly cover off the gem links. So I personally don't waste any time picking up an ID in rares other than maybe bows, as 99% of what you pick up will be junk. You don't really need to pick up bases because for the most part, Gwenin and Rog are going to supply you with those. I do, however, pick up and check any fractured items just in case there's some that might be really useful for the build. Now for your crafting, I would recommend using Rog for all of your crafting early on. There will be things like Screaming Essences and Harvest rerolls that you can use along the way to try and get lucky, but my main goal for this playthrough is going to be to try and craft gear with Rog. And it's not hard to craft, a good bow, a good chest, good boots, because he offers so many good upgrade options. All you're doing is looking for a base that already has decent mods on it, or maybe just good suffixes or just good prefixes. He's got tons of good stuff like reroll prefixes X times, upgrade X amount of mods by 1 tier, upgrade 1 tier to the maximum, add sockets, add links. There's loads of good stuff you can do with Rog. And it is quite easy to craft, big resistance chests or big life and resistance belts. He might not be your end game gear provider, but the gear he does provide will be way better than what you can essence craft or harvest craft early on. And the good thing about Rog is bow base doesn't matter when you're not going crit, because you don't need crit chance. So as long as it's got half decent attack speed base, you can use any bow base. The physical damage on it doesn't matter because we're going to scale any damage, so even low level bows work really well. Now, if you want to know more about Rog crafting, there are a lot of good videos on YouTube. I recommend just having a search because I'm quite new at it. I don't want to go through a guide because I'm honestly not that proficient at it. Want to get a bit more experience and understand more what I'm doing, I might bring out a guide. If you want to know more about Rog crafting, it's something I would look up videos from other creators. So we'll go over the gear. So we'll start with the bow. What you're looking for ideally at an entry level point into maps is 600 LE DPS or more. You want the base to be 1.4 attack speed or better. As I said, you don't need crit chance or crit multi when you precise technique, so bows should be fairly easy to craft a decent one. If we go onto the quiver, there's lots of good stats you can get on a quiver. In terms of prefixes, you can get life, damage of bow attacks, flat elemental damage, and elemental damage with attacks percentage. And then the suffixes, attack speed and projectile speed are really, really good. The other suffixes are going to come more into play when you go crit because you can get stuff like crit chance and crit multi on your quiver. For the rest of your gear, you're kind of looking just for life, resistances, boots, you obviously want movement speed. On your amulet, I'd recommend an agate amulet because it's strength and intelligence. If you can get extra attributes on this, even better. Strength on a belt is really, really nice to have as well. And then if you can find spell suppression on gear, brilliant, but I don't normally aim for this until much later on. It's just a nice to have if you can find it early. In terms of your flasks, you are looking for a corrupted blood life flask. You want a jade flask with an evasion suffix, granite flask with an armor suffix, quicksilver flask, I like the attack speed suffix, and then your last slot is really there for your diamond flask when you go crit, so you can either go a sulfur flask for more damage, or quartz for phasing and a nice little boost to spell suppression. And then before we close out the video, I might as well just quickly go through the gem links that I'm looking to get for once I've got 2 6 links. So my main 6 link is going to be Tornado Shot, Trinity, Inspiration, Greater Multiple Projectiles, LE damage with attacks, and then either Mirage Archer or Added Cold. This one, when you go crit, is going to be switched to critical damage. And at the moment, my ballistas are not even Tornado Shot yet because I'm only 4 linked. Once I get a 5 or 6 link, I'm going to go to Tornado Shot. I've listed the gems in which I think is order of importance. So it's Tornado Shot, Focus Ballista, Ballista Support, Greater Multiple Projectiles, Inspiration, and then LE damage with attacks. And then the rest of your links are just going to be a mark on hit and sniper's mark. And then I put a level 1 life tap on it because it does use quite a lot of mana. It's just easier for this to cast from life instead of mana. You want a level 1 precision while your precise technique because you're going to have the mastery that gives extra accuracy as dex. In all honesty, you probably don't need the precision, and you do have the mana available to push this up if your accuracy starts to fall below your life. You want a grace for evasion, and then I like haste just for extra movement speed and attack speed. And then the last 2 gems you need are a flame dash and blood rage. There isn't really a guard steel you could use. If you've got enough strength, you can maybe put steel skin on left click, but at the moment there's not really any need for any other gems. So that pretty much covers off what I wanted to go through in this episode. I hope the new format is more helpful for people in terms of being able to track the different parts of the series. And hopefully with the bullet pointed explanations, it's a bit easier to understand what I'm doing in each episode. So the next episode, we're going to further progress the Atlas tree. And then we're going to look to maybe add a second lead mechanic in and potentially look further onto what we want to farm first. Like, is it Legion Jewels? Is it Harvest Life Force? Is it Blight? Make our decision and then start adding in that second league mechanic. I'm going to try and target farm a 6 link. There's a few divination cards you can farm or just divination cards in general. But our goal is to try and at least farm either a ton of fusings, which could take a while, or try and target farm some cards to get a 6 link if we don't get lucky and get one drop in the meantime. Can do a lot more rod crafting because my gear is good for where I am at the moment, but it's definitely going to start to fall off. So we need to make some improvements there. And then really we're just going to be preparing for red maps. I'm very comfortable in the tier that I'm in, but I'm not fooling myself. If I go into a mid-tier red maps with this gear, I'm definitely going to start to struggle. There is going to be a current POB in the video description for where my character is at the moment. There's also a link to my profile in the video description. if you wanted to follow the filter that I'm using. As at the moment, it's just called bow mapping. If you're still in the campaign, there's one called bow leveling. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.